What's up, everyone? This is BigPowner, and I'm back. So I'm gonna be starting off. I've been doing a lot of the league mechanic testing. I've done like hundreds of the expeditions. So to start off, I'm gonna wind up going through all of the new league mechanic master dudes and give you guys some tips on how to get the most out of them. And then I'm gonna kind of go through and let you guys know um, how useful I think they are because I think that that's pretty important. There's obviously been a lot of stuff that I've heard, like, oh, is Gwen the new way to get the headhunter? Um, so I've done thousands on her. I've done a lot on all of them. So let's go ahead and go through them. We'll start off with Gwen.
In a
Um,
gambling mood?
she's pretty simple. You basically roll, and then
What else
she's
do
going
I
to give you a
have?
random inventory of items. The tip that I would say to maximize the currency on this, I would go somewhere like PoE Ninja, and I would find out what uniques it is that are going to be valuable if you wind up getting them. Find out what base that they're on, so that if those bases come up, you can buy them. Obviously, you want the headhunter, but we have four different types of currencies. The headhunter is a leather belt. It only uses one type of currency. It's going to share the same currency the um, with the other with the other belts. So all of your other currencies, you're going to want to spend them on something. Maybe if you're playing a caster, you're going to want to gamble some wands. So you'll buy all of the top tier wand bases. The Joules are going to wind up using the graders, so you can gamble some of those, whichever ones respectively are going to have a chance to be good for your build. Or if you already have all of your jewels, you could wind up gambling for the ones that are in the most popular, have the most likelihood to hit something that's useful on a popular build. That is my suggestion for that. So basically, figure out what bases have uniques that are going to be valuable. Gamble for items with the coinages that aren't going to be those target items. So like if I have two of the currencies that I'm going to be able to target for, expensive uniques, then I can use those other two currencies, figure out something to use them for, memorize those so that you can go through really fast and click them. Like for me, I'm using claws. If I was going to be doing this, or when I was doing it, I would always click Imperial Claws because those are the best base for the weapon that I'm using. My take on her, I honestly think that she's horrible. She's the only master that I didn't get anything from, like literally nothing. I think probably the best thing I got was I wound up like, not having just a plain base, and I wound up just flipping through her to get a extra item level 83 Imperial Claw to try to craft on. So she was actually absolutely horrible for me. Yeah, maybe some people get a few thousand coins and get a headhunter. My guess is that that's not going to be the case for most people because the reality is her as a master, she drops the most amount of coins, and she's just heavily just like garbage. It's kind of feels like what she is she's like you get to choose an item that basically is randomly generated as a drop. That's kind of what it feels like to me based on the stats that I see on the items. So I give her a big fat 0 because she gave me nothing, so I'm giving her nothing. I think she's the most useless of the masters. Obviously, there's going to be those people that really want to just gamble and gamble and gamble and hope for that headhunter. Probably most people that do that are never going to get the headhunter, which is kind of just a way that I don't like to play. I don't like to go all in on trying to get something that I'm probably not going to get. Granted, if you get it, then awesome. You get a big payoff, but more than likely, most people are not going to
Until
get that.
next time.
Every single one of my headhunters I've just flat out bought. So because I've tried the ancient orb gambling, I've tried, it just doesn't. It's you can do it for years and never get one. I did the 100% multi-person farming for Delirium, never got a headhunter to drop. So people show it and make it appear as like, oh yeah, if you just do this, you're gonna get it. That's not the truth. So, anyways, moving on, Rog. I would rank him number 2. He does have usefulness. There are some tips on him that you're going to want to know. I have some complaints about him and some reasons why I think that he has usefulness more early on. And then I think that as you get into being more geared, I think that he kind of loses his value. So, like earlier on, when your gear's not very good, I think that you can wind up getting some pieces of gear that are going to be really helpful for you. But once you get to a certain point where you're wearing like all influenced items, or you have like, like even like mid-grade items where like most of the stats are good, it's going to be really hard to get useful items out of him. I did get a few useful items from him. I think maybe one of the jewels that I got from him, I'm still using. I think I got a good multiplier jewel from him that I'm still using. I either sold it or when I swapped it with a better one. Um, it was really nice, triple crit stats and HP. So he has gotten stuff. I have gotten stuff from him, and he did hook me up with some stuff when I was kind of earlier on in my gear. But as I've gotten further on, I've kind of stopped using him, and the reason why is because once your gear gets to a certain place, it's actually really hard to get like super big item upgrades. And the reason why is because how he works. So with Joules, the major thing about Joules is he has like a lot of like remove the lowest modifier, remove the two lowest modifiers. The issue with trying to craft Joules when you're going to wind up getting things like this is that all of the mods on a Joule are going to be tier 1. So if you get one of those remove the lowest, although that sounds good and could be good in some scenarios, for Joules, it's completely useless because it's just going to completely randomly pull pull stats. And I've tried it a lot. I've done a lot of the buying of the jewels and trying to roll them. And pretty much every time it's like, I've got a multiplier in here. Hopefully he'll remove, the mana regen or something like that. And every single time for me, which is probably just bad RNG, he's just removed the multiplier. Obviously, if you gamble a lot with him, you're probably going to get some stuff because I got some stuff from him, but I don't like that. The other complaint is trying to craft any type of a PDPS weapon is going to be super, super hard. There are items that he's going to be inherently better at crafting, and the reason for that is because how he works. When he's rolling like prefixes, like it says reroll prefixes, what it's going to do is it's going to randomly roll that many times, and it's just going to go based off of the tier. There's an issue with this as far as trying to roll like any type of PDPS item or pretty much a lot of weapons, and the reason why is because there's a lot of mods that you don't want on items that only have a couple tiers. For instance, like if I'm trying to roll any type of a physical item, like like percent physical, so like a sword, a claw, any type of weapon, bow. The issue is percent physicals have a ton of tiers, so the chances of hitting one of those high tiers is low, but the chances of hitting a lot of crappy mods like percent life leech, percent mana leech, those only have 2 tiers, so those are going to come up just way more common. Bow skills, leech life, leech mana, paragons, which, on some builds that's going to be good. But as far as rolling prefixes on weapons, it's just basically makes it so that you're hardly never going to see a good randomized prefixes through that type of rolling, which makes it kind of pointless for that type of rolling. The only way or the tip to try to make something good using these is you should focus on one side of the item. Like if you wind up having an item come up that has either good prefixes or good suffixes, you need to focus on only rolling the side that's not good. And the reason why is because exactly what I described. If it says it's going to re-roll some of the stats on one of them, it's going to be heavily, heavily weighted to wind up with a lot of the stats that you don't want. So if you find an item which makes it so that there's going to be less items that you're going to be able to roll and have a high chance to get something good, but you want to know how to do it if you do get that. Imagine this Corsair sword had, imagine those 3 suffixes are really good. I would
I
buy
have a
this,
feeling if
and
I
my
hammer
goal
on
would
this thing's
be
front
I
end,
don't want
I
to
could
do
knock some of
anything to
its
my
intelligence
suffixes.
about a bit.
So the way that you have the best chance of getting a good item, assuming we're going to pretend that there was three good suffixes on this, is you're going to do anything that doesn't ruin the item. And there's a reason why. So this is prefixes, so I'm going to go ahead and do it.
I recently received a full
Um,
shipment of
and
rare
we'll
golden
we'll say
chimera
just
blood.
whatever I roll on the top,
Shall
but we'll
we
just pretend
go
like
for
it's
gold,
bad, so I'm
so to speak?
continuing the item. So the reason why we have to wind up re-rolling anything, obviously this would be re-roll
It's your lucky
prefixes,
day,
remove
exile.
prefixes. We're going to do anything with
Something quite
prefixes.
interesting. A
Um,
small etched rune
upgrade the
with a
level of 2
beneficent effect.
modifiers by 1 tier. We're going to do that.
Let's try
We
the aim
have
more.
to always
I like
do
you, exile. That's why
whatever
I'm
it
going to offer.
offers to do.
Allow me to
That's
tap
not going
my
to ruin our
ruined
item,
hammer
and
to
this
this
is the
thing's
reason why.
tail end.
Reroll
Can't get any
suffixes
worse,
10
can it?
times, keeping the best outcome. If I had skipped the mod previous to this, it would force me to do this, which either A means I have to stop doing the item and just take it, or I'm going to have to ruin that side that was already good, which means the item is ripped at that point. I have no more chances to continue doing the item, so that would be bad. So the only ones that I would skip would be ones that are touching that side that is actually good for me. The bottom, I don't want to touch that, so I'm going to skip
You're an
that.
investor,
I would
I
wind up
can
having
tell.
to take
With an
this,
eye
and
for
the
a
reason why
long-term
is
payoff.
because, if that,
Interested?
oh, well, it's upgrade and take now. So stuff like this can be expensive of the higher currencies. But if you're trying to finish the item, if you think that there's still a chance that one of the random rolls are going to wind up resulting in something good, you still have to take it, because if this had been before that suffixes reroll, then I skip it and then it comes up with the suffixes reroll, and now I'm like, well, I either ruined my item or I quit, which means the item, if it's not already amazing, is done. So when you get to this point where it's upgrade or take, obviously you're not going to upgrade it if it's not going to make the item
No need
um,
to wrap that up for you,
valuable
I
for
assume?
you at that point. So I think that he's a
Don't
pretty
get no rough feels.
useful a pretty definitely has some pretty useful uses as far as like scaling your build and stuff like that. I definitely got use out of him, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of like a cheap crafting. The thing is I feel that, like I said, once you get to a certain point, he's going to become kind of useless. This is true because um, once you get to a certain point, your upgrades that you're going to want, like if I have influence items, he can add influences to items, but it's like random when he's going to add it. Like he could add it right at the beginning, you could have chances to get the stats you need, but he could also add it right before the end, and you never even get a chance to put any influence stats on it. So obviously, the probability of you getting any meaningful upgrades at a certain point is close to basically zero, outside of just like insane RNG. So I think at a certain point he winds up becoming basically useless. So I mean, there's probably some things that you could still roll on to try to get currency. The Joules, I would say, would be something, but those are kind of more of like a complete gamble. Granted, there's going to be a higher chance that you wind up with good suffixes or prefixes, and you could use that method that I just described, and you could probably wind up with some decently valuable Joules using him. And Joules are always pretty much going to be valuable. You wind up getting high multiplier Joules, like multiple multiplier Joules. Those are always going to be valuable. Those are always going to be something you're going to be able to resell. So, he could wind up producing a good amount of currency that way. Now we're going to go on to the two that I think are best. I think that these two are actually tied. I've played the most of. I don't know whether Tujin or Danig I've played more. I played Knights of the Sun the most when I first started, and the reason why is because it's pretty amazing that he winds up giving
Hero.
us just a blanket. He winds up giving us all of the currencies. So when you use a reroll, and I was trying to get a map to show, so I spent my currencies before the video, but I couldn't get it. Um, but he winds up giving us currencies to buy, which are for all of the other vendors, which is really cool, especially earlier on. This is really cool. The thing that's really amazing about him is he winds up selling you expedition maps. He actually even sells you expedition maps that are a higher level than can actually drop inside of the game. So that's like crazy, or at least I've never seen an item level 85 logbook drop inside of a map. So that's pretty crazy. He sells really high item level logbooks, and you can just roll those and get that. The other cool thing is his currency transforms into other currencies. Every time you re-roll, you'll get a bunch of different currencies that you can buy at a discounted price. The discounted price goes down to zero point 0.5, which means like if I spend 1,000 of his lesser coins and he's offering 2,000 lesser size, I get double the amount of lesser size for my lesser of the sun, which is really cool. So it makes him really valuable because you could wind up running a map, get a bunch of his coinage, and you could wind up getting multiple expeditions from spending his coinage, which makes him just like a really valuable place to run pretty much on anywhere. Because even if you wanted to do low investment on him, you could do low investment, basically just like the least desirable of the sun maps, and then you could wind up spending his coinage and getting premium maps, and just like stocking up premium maps, which is which is what I was doing early, which made me a lot of currency because getting free maps, they're not over. I would say that the expedition logbooks aren't overly priced, but they're still expensive. So getting free ones is basically like getting a free, third of an exalt, half an exalt. That's a pretty big drop coming out of him. If I get a bunch of coinage and I get multiple maps, that's like just right there, like an extra exalt or something like that. And then all the coinages, which makes it so that, I can do all of the different masters, get benefits from all of them, or I can just only buy the stuff that I prefer. Like if I don't want to gamble on Gwen at all, which I do gamble on Gwen still from this, if I'm going to get a bunch of her coinages, then I'm going to go ahead and use them, obviously, because if I do wind up getting lucky and pulling the headhunter, I ain't gonna complain about it. Here, 1 second. 2, 3. 159. Um, so yeah, he's pretty amazing, and he's a good place to play. I'm gonna say he's always gonna be a good place to play, especially if you're playing on a budget. I think overall that's what I was trying to say. Between the two, it's hard to say which one's better, just because there's so much value in him selling you maps for the coinages. The thing that I'll say about that is the
Well met.
maps for the coinages a lot of the time wind up costing the graders. So I wouldn't wind up running out of these grand sun artifacts, because you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot if you're out of them and he offers an
Farewell.
expedition or a couple expeditions. That wouldn't be
What
good.
you need?
So Tujin is really good because he sells us currencies. Um, this I'm going to give some good advice on, because he will try to screw you over. And I actually rolled this a bunch so I could give you guys an example. I don't think this is the best example, but it's a pretty good one. He will sell a bunch of stuff, and he will sell the exact same things at a huge varying amount of price. Um, Something that sometimes he could sell for 20 or 30 lesser coins. Sometimes he could sell for 4,000, 5,000 of one of the higher coins, and it's absolutely not worth buying no matter what it is, even if it's an exalted orb. The reason why is because all of your coins have value, and there's actually market value to them, and you should pay attention to what the market value is, and you should also pay attention to what the market value of all of the currencies that he sells are. And the reason why is because the way that you can actually make a lot of currency from buying from him is you have to look at all of the things that he's offering you as a currency amount. To really make currency off of farming him, you have to be able to stock up and sell in bulk. That's how you're going to wind up making the most currency from him. Um, because if you're like, if you're at a place where you're going to be able to afford one map and then you need to sell the stuff to buy the next map, he's not going to pay off that well for you. And the reason why is because trying to micro sell, 20 different things is going to just be a huge waste of your time. Um, you know, so keep that in mind. But the main thing that you need to be aware of is what each currency is worth. So scouring orbs, this isn't a bad deal. It's a little bit less than 2C for like 20
Sure.
something.
Why not?
Alterations, this is like 1C. This still isn't bad for like 20 something
Always a
20
pleasure.
something coins. The reason why is because, if it's like 20 something coins, then that would be like what, 40C for 40C for 1,000 or something like that. Um, which that's still not the best deal, but that's still in a range that I would buy. The the common, this is basically 3C for stack decks. If I were to save up and sell them in a really big bulk, that's what I get for them. Um,
Let's
so
haggle a bit
so this is
more.
going to be worth buying.
I'll take it.
So buying these small amounts, if you're able to do it efficiently, in a very short amount of time, you can transform all of the coins that you've built up into a big inventory of a lot of stacks of different currencies that will be multiple exalts. It's a nice payoff after you've done all of your maps and stuff like that. The thing that you need to avoid is buying something like this. We have a stack of tempering catalysts here. They're 1.5C each, so this would be 15C. The issue is, we'll go ahead and I don't know if you guys can see the price. I gotta move my. Um, okay. So you guys can see right here, it costs 3,800, which is just absolutely crazy. Because if we look at that, even though it's 15, even though it's 15C, 3,800. We got this 3C for we got the 3C for, we'll even call it 100 to make it easy. So 3,800, times 3, 38 times 3, that's over 100 chaos. What, 118 or 130, wait, 38, 3, 90, 100 and 114C versus the 15C that's there. So if I were to buy that and then I have a bunch of coins left to run through, and then I'm going to run out of those coins if I'm making these huge purchases that are just eating a ton of my coins. And even if I look at my coins and I'm like, oh, I've got 20,000 of those coins. Well, those 20,000 coins go away really quickly if I buy like that. Say I get it, at 3,000. I do that 5 times, and I'm basically broke on coins, and I've only gotten 65C. And one purchase of that could have been turned into the smaller currencies, which the 3C for the 100 of that currency actually isn't a very good deal. I would still do that, but that would be kind of like on the higher realm of what I would pay, because I know that there's going to be a lot of times that I can buy on the lower end where 20, 30 of those coins are going to get me 2 or 3C. So you really have to pay attention to that. I've had like the more valuable currencies. I've had an exalted orb come up for thousands of the grand ones, and that's just crazy. And that's why you need to know how much these currencies are worth, because if I would have bought that, I could have literally just taken those grand sites and just sold them like on a trade site and made way more. And it's just, you really got to pay attention to the value of the things in here. And as you play it more, as you do more of the transactions with him, you'll get a better feel for it, so you'll be able to go through it really fast. efficiently buying, because probably at first you'll be like, I need to know the value of how much can I sell alterations in bulk for, how much can I sell scouring orbs for in bulk, how much is this worth, how much is that worth. So you'll have to do those things. There are some times that stacks of catalysts will come up and they'll be priced where it's a really good deal and it's worth buying. And that would be really nice because normally you sell 20 at a time, so you get two stacks and you're able to sell them right away. So that would be nice, and that does come up, but that's the example. Sometimes, a stack like that will come up for a few hundred, and then it's definitely a good buy. This happens a lot with stack decks also. I see it a lot. You'll have like three stack decks for like, 30 coins or 100 coins, and in the same thing, there'll be 10 of them, and it'll cost 4,000. And it's like, definitely not worth it. That's a 10C value for thousands of coins. So that you definitely want to pay attention to. Um, the This mechanic is going to be really good, I think, for basically the whole league. I kind of don't understand people selling the coins and buying all the currencies. I could understand selling or buying if I wound up with like just a bunch extra of one specific one, but I don't really see the market outside of that. I feel like the price of them on the market is at a place where it's not worth me selling them, but I still can't see some it being valuable for someone to just buy them and spend them. But to each their own. That's my personal take on it. Is just good coin management. Know what the stuff that you're buying, what it's worth. Don't get overly excited and overpay to him because he will try to rip you off. I know this from experience when I first started doing it. Something good came up. Probably, I think it was like a map that was worth like 50C or something, and I was like, oh, I have enough for that. And then I bought it, and then I still had a bunch of coinage, and I was like, oh man, now I'm missing out on 10C here and 10C here, and lesson learned. Hopefully, this saves you from having to learn that lesson outside of me just telling you what to do. Anyways, this is what I wanted to cover. I've covered it pretty well. If you guys have any other questions about the master specifically, go ahead and ask. If you have any questions about the other stuff related to it, I am going to be doing videos on the expeditions, a bunch of different stuff on the expeditions, but I wanted to break it up because I feel like they need to be different aspects need to be focused on differently, but obviously spending your coins and deciding what you're going to want to farm is kind of the first step, so that's why I started here. But logbooks are going to be a huge topic. There's so many different ways to farm it. There's going to be popular zones, but testing all of the zones, some of the zones that are the least popular actually have insane potential, and you can actually produce like ridiculous currency from them, regardless of the faction that's on them. Obviously, if you have a better faction, then that is going to make it better. But there's definitely some hidden strategies that are probably definitely not mainstream, because it seems like some of the maps that don't have as good of inherent loot have kind of hidden things that make them more valuable. Like some maps are just going to have a lot more monster density, which is going to make it so that stacking up monster mods and monsters drop extra currency or something like that winds up creating some insane drops. Or if I was farming specifically a currency, having that higher amount of monsters might wind up paying off a lot more, getting a lot more of those currencies, the coinages, then going for like scarabs or fossils or simulacrum splinters, or those things that cost more on those maps, because those are the big things that stick out to people. Is, oh, this map, shipwreck has scarabs, so obviously scarabs are a good drop, or Volcanic Island has fossils, or Karui Wargraves has fossils, or which those are good things to farm. But there's definitely a lot more to it. A lot more of the maps are useful than I think a lot of people think. But I will be covering that in future content. I am back. I will be doing a video, a build guide for my build. Sorry for everyone that's been following me that has gotten used to me doing the pre-league videos. I plan to continue doing that. Just sometimes life happens. So anyways, thanks for watching. Hope everyone is having fun. Talk to you guys later. Peace.